Alright, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the EOS R5. We're going to be looking at the 6 things I love about it and the 6 things I kind of like, I don't want to say I hate because I don't hate, but some things I just don't love about this camera. But I'll be honest, I'm still kind of on the fence with this camera. I don't know how to feel about it. But let's talk about that in the video. Alright, so here we go. We have the EOS R5 in hand. I've had this camera for about a week now, and I've been playing around with it, testing it out in different scenarios. And I want to talk about the things I love and don't love about it, because I feel like this camera was marketed as one thing, but in actuality, it's another thing. So I want to make this video to let you guys know, if you're interested in buying this camera, what you're buying exactly, because the hype that Canon built up around this camera isn't necessarily true. Yeah. Alright, so let's talk about the 6 things I love and the 6 things I don't love so much about this camera now that I've had it for a week or so and I've been able to play with it for a little while. So let's start. Number 1, IBIS. This camera has IBIS, in-body image stabilization. You can hear it shaking around in there, and it works really well. Now, as a photographer, I could care less for IBIS because, I mean, it's usable in very specific situations, but you're not gonna use it all the time. For video, absolutely amazing. The IBIS coupled with the lens IS gives you a super steady shot. You can shoot handheld, super steady. It is amazing. That's definitely a bonus. Number 2, photo quality. The photo quality on this camera, wow. Wow, like I am blown away. I can safely say, and I think anybody could make an argument, that this may be the best photo camera, full frame, that you can buy out there. I mean, the Sony has their, what's it, A7 R3? I think it's A7R. The Sony names always confuse me, but Sony's got a high megapixel camera, which is really good as well. And then the R5, an argument can be made for both of them. But I think if someone were to say that this is hands down the best photo camera on the market today, I don't think they would run into much opposition. Like it is that good for photos. And that is something I love about it. Number 3, we have the new and improved dual pixel autofocus 2 with eye tracking. Now, when the EOS R came out, we had face tracking and everyone wanted eye tracking. So there was a firmware update and then we got eye tracking in the EOS R. And now this improves on that, and there is like super sticky eye tracking. The model can jump, spin, flip, whatever, run around, and this thing will just stick that box to the eye and it'll follow the model wherever they go, or the athlete or whoever you're shooting, the subject matter. And it's just really remarkable. I think Canon has really caught up to Sony, because Sony was the king of eye tracking. I think Canon and Sony now are completely on par. In fact, it'd be cool to do a test with 2 cameras and see which one tracks the eye better. Now, the other thing I will say is that having a box around somebody's eye on the LCD or in the viewfinder is one thing, but the camera actually tracking and focusing on the eye in the photo or the video is another thing altogether, because it's easy to trick somebody by having a box move around the screen. So in my usage of the camera so far, it looks like the box and the focusing are working together, and I'm getting good results so far, but that's something I'm going to pay attention to, and I'll be doing some tests with that in the future. Number 4, both screens on this camera are amazing. I'm not talking about this little screen. You know, it'd be fun if this little screen had like Tetris or some kind of game you could play on there with the little buttons on your camera. It'd be like a little novelty game. But anyway, sidetrack. Yeah, the EVF, amazing. The LCD, amazing. Like, it's just super clean, super sharp. The size is good, so when you're vlogging, you can really see what's going on. It's nice and big. Like, you're really gonna see yourself. And yeah, no complaints there. Plus, when you're actually using it for focusing or touching it, moving it around, it is super responsive. So thumbs up to Canon on that. The screens are A+ for sure. And number 5, we gotta flip the camera around to the backside. Yes, returning to the Canon bodies, or the mirrorless bodies. We have the joystick and we have the scroll wheel. Oh, that's so satisfying. I mean, the wheel isn't as big as it was on the 5Ds. I like the bigger wheel, but I mean, given the space you're working with here, I think it's perfect. And it is so nice. I got used to the touch bar on the EOS R. I used it for changing my focus type. So if I wanted like the eye tracking, or if I wanted like spot focus or general area or whatever, I could just swipe. But this is so much handier, so much handier. It has so much more practical use. And like, especially if like you're shooting an event, the eye tracking on this camera is so good. Let's say you're shooting a wedding and you have the bride and the groom, and there's an interesting conversation happening between them, but the bride's friend is standing in front of the bride. So now this camera is tracking the bride's friend's eye instead of the bride's eye, but you want the bride's eye, so you can quickly change focus modes. I set this button on the back of the camera to change focus mode, so I hit the button and then I just flip the joystick to the bride's eye, and it's just super fast and responsive, and you can just focus. Or, I mean, if you're shooting this way too, what you can do is you can just touch the screen on the bride's eye and it'll just track her eye. It'll say, oh, okay, you want to track the bride, not this other eye. Okay, we'll track this instead. So, I mean, yeah. Glad to see the joysticks back. It makes things super super handy. In fact, this joystick feels like a video game controller when you're moving the focus point around. You just, you go left, right. It's so responsive. But yeah, enough about that. Moving on to the next thing. This is one of my favorite things about the EOS R, and now it is on the R5. And let's see if you can see it there. It is the fact that the shutter's down. Now, I will say in the menu, you do have the option to turn this feature off so the shutter's up. If you're one of those people who, I don't know, accidentally stick your finger in there and you break the shutter, I mean, it's easier to clean the sensor than it is to replace the shutter, but the fact that the shutter comes down, so if you're shooting in like a dusty wedding hall or whatever, it'll protect the sensor. So, I mean, I had the EOS R for 2 years and I have not cleaned the sensor once. I have not got dust on it at all. That shutter comes down and protects it. And that's just, like, there's nothing more frustrating than going out to shoot a photo or video and then you see this nasty dust spot right there. And it's just like, pisses you off, right? So the fact that this shutter comes down to protect the sensor, I think that's a super highly overrated feature that this camera has. I think one Sony camera has it too. I'm not sure about the R6, but I know the R5 for sure and the R have it. And I literally would not buy a camera that does not have this, because amazing. I love that little trick. Okay, so now with all that being said, let's talk about the 6 things that I don't love so much about this camera. 1 is this. It doesn't float. No, I'm kidding. The thing I don't like about the R5 is the size and the weight. Now, Sony kind of pioneered the mirrorless market with their small little alpha bodies, and they're beautiful. They're small, they're light, they're compact. You can almost put it in a big pocket, But this, I don't know what Canon was thinking here, because they've increased the size of the body. Now this is closer to a 5D in sort of feel and size. It's still smaller than a 5D. It's bigger than an EOS R, but it's at this uncomfortable weight where it's just sort of falling back towards DSLR weight again. And I found the EOS R was a perfect size. It's small, it's light, but this, I mean, it is small and light. I mean, yeah, you're looking at me, you're looking at the camera, you're like, dude, why are you complaining? It doesn't weigh anything. But in the world of mirrorless, this is a pretty big mirrorless camera. And I don't like the extra bulk and the size and the weight. I much prefer, if I were to shoot photos, to use the EOS R just because of the lower weight. And it's just a little bit heavier, but it makes a difference. It just feels bigger and bulkier in the hand. So I don't like that. All right, number 2, we have 2 card slots. I know it's something everyone's been asking, but it's not really 2 card slots. It's 2 single card slots, 2 different cards. I know when the EOS R came out, it only had 1 card slot. I couldn't understand for the life of me. I mean, a lot of Canon shooters were like begging Canon for a proper mirrorless camera. So Canon says, here you go, here's the EOS R, but it only has 1 card slot. And it's just like, what? Why? Like, who over there made such a stupid decision? It's like, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. Like, I don't get it. But okay, this camera here, let's talk about this one. The R5 has an SD card slot and a CF Express card slot. I don't understand. It's basically 1 card slot again, but 2 different 1 cards, right? Like, okay, as a photographer, you're shooting a wedding. You want to have 2 cards in there to back up your shots. So you got to get a regular SD card, but you can't use your other SD cards, which you already have, to capture backup. You got to buy a CF Express card which is like crazy expensive. And if you follow proper like wedding photography etiquette, you change your memory cards at every different location just to make sure nothing happens, right? So you're gonna have to buy a bunch of CF Express cards to use as backups. Like, it just, I don't know. It's just silly. Plus, when you're shooting video, it'll record the high quality video to the CF Express card and then record like a lower down version to the SD card. So, I mean, you're not, like, Sony did it right. They have the dual slot, single card slot card, so it takes two different types of cards in each slot, so you can match it up however you want. That was brilliant. And if Canon were smart here, you know, even if they didn't have that technology that Sony has, they should have two SD card slots and then a CF Express card slot. I mean, that would make sense, right? That way you satisfy the video people and the photo people, but now the photo people are like, why do I have to invest in CF Express card slots when clearly I don't need it since I'm not shooting video? And then the video people are like, why is there only one CF Express card slot if I'm shooting video? I can't back it up, right? So it's just the choices being made at Canon. I don't know. I don't get it. I really don't get it. 3. Now the third thing I don't like about this camera, and this is the big topic here, is the overheating. The overheating. And this is a very complex topic because it kind of reaches into a lot of different things. Now, I'm going to mix this with overheating and unusable video formats. I'm going to put that in as number 3 because this camera was advertised to shoot 8K. I mean, Canon came out and said this is going to be a revolutionary camera. It's going to be a game changer. It's going to change industry. It's going to be like the 5D Mark II. It's going to be revolutionary, but it's not. It really isn't. Like, you have 8K, but you can't use 8K. I mean, you can record 8K video for what, 17 minutes, and then it's overheated and you can't use the camera for 2 hours. So as a professional videographer looking to buy some video equipment to create content which your clients are paying you to create, you can't really use 8K. And the same goes for 120 frames per second 4K with autofocus, which is amazing. That's an amazing feature to have in the camera. And that's one of the things I bought this camera for. I pre-ordered it, I got it because it had 120 frames per second 4K with autofocus. And it's really unusable. I mean, you can use it until the camera overheats and then it's done. So yeah, and then you have 4K HQ. Oh my God, 4K HQ, which is 8K compressed down to 4K in camera. It is the sharpest 4K I have ever seen. Like, it is really, really, really good right out of camera. It is super crisp. You could count all the hairs in someone's eyebrows. Like, it is nuts. But again, this feature causes the camera to overheat and you have limited amount of time with it. So as a professional videographer who gets paid to create things for people, it's a feature that's off the table. All 3 of those features are off the table because you can't use them. So all you really have is regular 4K, 60 frames per second. And you can record with that till the cows come home, right? The camera's not gonna overheat. But if you wanna use any of these specialized features, which are so tasty and exciting and probably makes you wanna buy this camera, just know that because of the time limit and the overheating, they're not really practical options to be using in a professional manner. Right, so that's unfortunate, and that's one of the reasons I may end up returning this camera. Okay, the next thing I want to talk about is another weird decision by Canon. The codecs that they put in this camera for those higher video specs, if you want to record 8K and 4K HQ and stuff like that, the codecs are really beefy. They capture a lot of information, which is good. So I'm not complaining about that. That's definitely a good thing. But here's the thing with this camera. If you want to record with these higher video specs, you're gonna have to buy a new computer. You're gonna have to upgrade, and you're gonna have to drop $2,000 on a new computer if you want to use this camera and the features that it offers you, because it's like the codecs are too beefy. Canon should have offered codecs that aren't quite so heavy so your computer could process it. That's the part that confuses me. It's like, you trying to sell a camera, Canon, or not? Like, guess who's gonna say I'm gonna drop $4,000 on a camera and then I'm gonna drop another $2,000 on a video editing PC to handle the video that comes out of it? Like, it just, now, I mean, that being said, Canon is is coming out. Supposedly, this is a rumor with a firmware to add some like cine light and other codecs into this camera, so more people can record with it at high quality and use it on their PCs. And just for a reference, my PC over there is running an AMD 3900X, which is what, 12 cores, 24 threads, and it's got a 2070 Super video card in there, and that's high end. That's high end right now, right? And it can handle, I haven't shot 8K because I don't have a CF Express card, but it can handle the high quality 4K modes. And then if I'm like color grading and layering and all these different effects and stuff, it does get choppy in the timeline. I have to drop it down to 1/4 quality in Premiere Pro. It can handle it, and it exports, and you know, I can edit and I'm fine with it. But I mean, this is pretty much a brand new computer I'm using. Most people don't have that. A lot of people are using stuff that they've had for 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. So I don't know. I just think it was silly for Canon to launch this camera without more video options, to give videographers more options depending on the equipment that they're using to edit their videos. So that was a silly choice by Canon. I don't like that. All right, the fifth thing I don't like about this camera, and this is just me being nitpicky, is the on-off switch. I've used Sony's, I've shot with Nikons, and I absolutely love one-handed operation. I don't like the fact that you pull this out of your camera bag, you gotta use your left thumb to put it on, and then you start shooting. I would love to be able to just pull it out of the camera bag, one-handed operation, turn it on, click, 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 click. And I've heard the argument that, you know, if the on-off switch is over here by the shutter release button, you accidentally turn off the camera. I have never accidentally turned off the camera. I've shot weddings, events, all sorts of things with Nikon, Sony's, never once accidentally hit it. You know, plus you can even hide it a little further up here if you're worried about hitting it, but I've never hit it. And I'm just tired of Canon keeping the on-off switch on the other side. Like, it just, once you get used to this on-off switch being here, it's so much more convenient. You pick up the camera, you flip it on, you take your shots. It's so much faster than having to use two hands. Anyway, that's not a big deal, but that's one of the things I don't like. I want the on-off switch here. And number 6, and this is the big thing for a lot of people, is the price. This camera is what, $3,899, so pretty much $4,000. $4,000 for this camera. That's what it costs if you want it brand new, and that doesn't even include an RF lens. That's just the camera, and it doesn't include an adapter. Like, when the EOS R came out, Canon gave a free adapter out with the EOS R, so you can use your EF lenses. So if you're buying this camera, yeah, for $3,899, you're gonna have to buy one of the adapters. Canon offers 3 adapters. You got the basic adapter, which is like pass through. Then you've got one with a polarizer filter, and then you've got one with like a speed ring that you can control or I guess program to do something. But yeah, so that's kind of like, think about it. Okay, $4,000, what are you getting? What are you paying for here? 45 megapixel sensor? I think the EOS R with the 30 megapixel sensor is fine. Not fine, it's great. 30 megapixels, you can shoot photos for clients, you can shoot stuff for social media. You don't need 45. If you're shooting product shots or landscapes, 45 is great because you get a lot of detail and you get a nice big image that you can shrink down and look sharper. But I mean, I think it's overkill, right? And I hope, and you're paying for that here with $4,000 plus IBIS. I mean, they're probably charging you for IBIS in here, but every camera has IBIS now, so. And they're probably charging you for 8K, 4K HQ, and 120 frames per second, 4K with autofocus, which for professionals are unusable features. Plus, I mean, a little bonus rant here, you have a micro HDMI. Like, why? I know Canon gives you a little clip here to hold the wire in place so it doesn't bend around and move and you don't like break the connector, but these things break all the time, right? I don't know, like, if they're advertising this camera to professionals with 8K video, why doesn't the 8K video last more than 20 minutes? Why doesn't it last an hour? All these 8K, 4K HQ, and 120 frames per second 4K should all last at least an hour. There should not be a record limit of 30 minutes on this camera. I mean, why? Why? I mean, everyone's getting rid of record limits, so why doesn't Canon do it too? I mean, they need to change the firmware to give us unlimited record time, or at least an hour. An hour would be great. 30 minutes is just, it's gone, right? It's too fast. Need a proper HDMI port, that's for sure. I mean, what are you paying for $4,000? You get an A7 III, you can get an EOS R. They can handle pretty much what this thing can handle, because if you think about it, what's the best video quality you're gonna get out of an R5? I mean, as a professional shooting for clients, 4K 60, right? And you can do that with those other cameras. So why are you paying $4,000 for this? So yeah, those are my dilemmas. That's why I love this camera, and I'm unsure about this camera, and I love it at the same time. So yeah, I'm really up in the air about it. And those are my thoughts after 1 week of use. So hopefully that helps you understand the product that you're buying if you decide to go for an R5. So those are the things I love and don't love so much about the EOS R5. So we'll see what's in store for this camera. I'm really kind of interested in the Sony a7 III to see what it can do, because I'm doing a lot more video now than I did before, and with the video features in this camera being pretty much crippled, do I want to hold on to it? I have an EOS R, so if I need to shoot photos, I can use the EOS R. 30 megapixels, like I said, is fantastic, but I need something that can do better video. So we'll see what happens. This is too early to tell right now. So yeah, those are my thoughts on that. All right, guys, my name is Vasko. I'm a professional content creator. Here's my link to my webpage. If you like this kind of content, please subscribe. Boom, 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 right there. And I'm gonna be making a lot more content in the future. We're gonna be talking about all sorts of camera stuff, camera gear, lenses, that kind of thing. And yeah, that's it. This video is now over. Peace out. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.